Chapter 14, A Society of Schizophrenics. In listening to Anastasia's grandfather's account of what man should eat and how, I couldn't help comparing what he had said with the dietary regimes of people today, even rich people living in so-called civilized countries. A rather puzzling situation unfolded. Let us work it out together once and for all. To begin with, we all know that it is healthful for a man to consume fresh and ecologically clean produce. We all know that in nature, there are plants capable of treating all types of diseases of the body. Hold on, we need to be more precise. In nature, there are plants capable of preventing diseases of the body. Then why don't we have all of them available? Why and under whose influence have we chosen a way of life which destroys not only our bodies, but our minds too? Someone out there must be simply laughing at us, befooling us, and calling this way of life civilized. If we use terms like civilized country, civilized society, meaning by this a society of people which have achieved a certain and, of course, correct level of development, then this development should also be reflected in, among other things, questions pertaining to diet. And not just among the other things, but first and foremost. Now let's pay a visit together to a typical food store or supermarket, the kind you have in any so-called civilized country. It could be either in the West or here in Russia. If we're talking about major cities, the difference in variety of produce isn't all that great. We find that the majority of produce available is nicely packaged and has a long shelf life. We find a whole lot of dried, frozen, and concentrated products which can hardly be termed as fresh produce. At the supermarket, we can also find so-called fresh vegetables, beautiful to look at tomatoes, cucumbers, and so forth, but lately it has come to light that these are hybrids, specially cultivated varieties capable of preserving their good looks for a long time, but considerably inferior in quality to the normal, natural variety. Just about any adult resident of a European country is aware of this. Europe already has a chain of stores with signage proclaiming they sell only ecologically clean merchandise, but at a price about 5 times higher than in other stores. This means the public has now recognized that other stores, and there are far more of them, sell produce that is not ecologically clean. But let us call a spade a spade. The public has recognized that a majority of their number have been consuming produce that is harmful to their health. Hold on. What about the term civilized society? Is it possible for people in a civilized society to consume food of inferior quality, which is harmful to their health? A more accurate description of such people might be a muddle-headed society, or a society with befuddled population. In muddle-headed societies, whose ranks Russia seems to be trying so hard today to join, one can outline a distinct system for befuddling the population. Look at what is happening. Someone consumes inferior produce and takes ill. The sick person falls into the arms of a system called healthcare. This system has at its disposal a huge quantity of drugs, hospitals, and clinics, and this has to be paid for somehow. Huge sums of money are continually being poured into it. We are told it is constantly improving. But note, according to statistics, the number of sick people is rising each year. Then along comes new diseases, which mankind has never had to grapple with before, including a whole lot of mental illnesses, not to mention the fashionable profession of psychotherapy. And the question resounds loud and clear: what is behind the degradation of the overall health of these civilized societies? Isn't it the healthcare system itself, at least partly, to blame? By comparing data from various sources, anyone who wishes to determine the overall degradation of humanity's health is an actual fact. Yes, we're talking about physical well-being, but mental health is an even more dangerous factor. We have only but to turn away from the obtrusive, monotonous flood of information that does not allow man to think about what is really going on, and we begin to doubt, to put it mildly, the normality of the majority of the population of these so-called civilized societies. We begin to look upon these societies' chosen lifestyle as indicative of a schizophrenia disorder. Judge for yourselves. Let's say a man living in his family domain wanted to eat an apple, for example. What does he do? He goes out into his orchard. He picks fresh fruit from the tree, and he eats it. And let's take a look at the actions of another man who lives in a city apartment in a developed society. He also wants to eat an apple. He takes some money, goes to the store, and buys an apple, which is no longer fresh. He buys an apple which another person grew and packed into a crate. Someone else transported this apple by a truck or a plane. Then a third party built a store and placed this apple on one of the counters. All these operations, from the growing of the apple right up to the final sale, are accounted for by special people who compile inventories and collect taxes, duties, and other exorbitant charges. Thus, we have a whole chain of procedures whereby people are involved in the supposedly useful business of offering a fellow human being the opportunity to taste the fruit of an apple tree. And the one who tastes this fruit must firsthand find work somewhere to earn the paper money and pay for his whole thought-up chain of intermediaries standing between the apple tree's branches and the man. Yet our society considers this normal. A befuddled society has no inkling that someone very much wanted to lead people away from their true purpose and have their attention occupied in senseless pursuits. The process of drawing people into such absurdities has been a long one. That's not something you could do quickly. If you tried to do it quickly, even the most feeble-minded individual would be able to see the stupidity of what was happening. Just think what a paradox it all is. One fine day you decide as usual to go to your apple tree and pick some fruit. You no sooner step off your front porch and start heading for the tree than you catch sight of a whole queue of people. "Who are you?" you ask to the fellow standing closest to you. "I'm an apple dealer," he answers. "And who are the people behind you?" you continue to wonder, and hear in reply, "Behind me is the person who trucks the apples from my store. Behind him is the one who picks them from the tree, and around us you see an entourage of people in fresh, clean suits. Those are the ones who record the quantity of the apples that pass through our hands." Okay, but really, who are you, chaps? Don't tell me you're a bunch of schizos, you blurt out in a fluster. What's with all the meaningless red tape? Who's going to thank you for such nonsense? And the reply comes, "You will thank us. You will pay all of us money, and with this money we too shall buy apples." Where am I going to get the money to pay you? Go see your neighbor, the one with the pear trees. There's a job for an open record clerk. You can become a pear tree record clerk, earn money, and pay us and eat apples whenever you like. Absurd, you are thinking, no doubt. Utter schizophrenia. Of course it's absurd. Of course it's schizophrenia, but this is just the kind of thing that's going on right now with each of us in our society. The conditions for a healthful life, and really they are too obvious, need to be set down in the form of a treatise. Well, here's one, a miniature treatise. Point number 1, every man living on the earth should have his own domain, his own space to guarantee for himself a supply of high-quality food. Point number 2, in his own space, man should grow, preferably by his own hand, fruit-bearing plants he considers tasty and healthful. Say, for example, someone knows ahead of time that he doesn't like red currants. He does not need to plant these in large quantities. Altogether, at least 300 varieties of perennials should be put in. I shall not go over again the particular methods of sowing and communicating with the plants as they were described back in the first book when Anastasia was talking about the Dachniks. Naturally, this is not something that can be accomplished in the space of a year, or even 2 or 3, but it is entirely possible to ensure that one's children will have, in fact, an ideal source of food supply. Point number 3. Every morning upon waking, a man should take a walk through his family domain, and if he desires, eat some fruit or berries or herbs which have just that moment ripened to maturity. This should be done entirely according to one's desire, not at the recommendation of some sort of dietitian, even one with a postgraduate degree. Once your body has become familiar with all the taste qualities of the food growing in your domain, it will compile the ideal regime for you in terms of quality, quantity, and the appropriate time for the food to be eaten. You don't need to go out into your garden just in the morning or according to a strict timetable somebody else has thought up, but only when you have a real desire to eat. In our modern living conditions, many people cannot stay all the time in their domain, even if they have one, but it is good to go out in it at least once a week. In the case of illness, before taking any medicines, it is best simply to go out to your family space and stay there for several days. If you have already established your own space, and if your body can access information about the plants growing in that space, it will be able to determine with absolute certainty what is necessary for recovering your health. According to Anastasia's affirmation, there are no diseases of the human flesh which cannot be overcome by the space of love that you have created. Of course, we're not talking about the space of a city flat, but a domain established according to the principles she has set forth. After formulating these rules on a pad of paper, I read them to Anastasia's grandfather and asked, "Have I left out anything?" If you want to jot down a summary, this will do to start with. Only you must really say something about the neighbors. What have neighbors got to do with it? I didn't understand at first. What do you mean, what have they got to do with it? Grandfather was taken aback by my query. Think about it. If just on the other side of the fence from your domain, there's a factory spewing forth deadly fumes, and the wind carries these fumes into the space of your domain, what kind of air are you going to be breathing? Nobody would want to build their domain next to a factory, I protested, but I said no more. Then I remembered, in the city of Novosibirsk, there are dacha plots located barely half a kilometer from a tin smelter, and in Germany there are farmers' fields right next to an autobahn with 8 lanes of traffic. And I thought, wow, such a simple concept as growing agricultural produce for food is possible only in places that are ecologically clean, preferably not anywhere close to big cities. There's no way a simple concept like this is going to get through to man, so I've got to add one more point. Point number 4. Your domain should be located in an ecologically clean zone. It should be surrounded by the domains of those who share your vision of creating family oases of paradise. One breeze will carry life-giving pollen from your domain to your neighbors, while another breeze from their direction will bring you life-giving air.